Hey y'all, happy Thursday. We about to have a good time, but also a lot of these books I'm about to talk about got me messed up. Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back if you're returning, and hello if this is your first time. My name is Timothy DuWhite and these are the DuWhite pages. Oh my god. Every time, I swear, every time it's like, I don't know what to do. Thank you all so very much, y'all. This is for anyone who's new, that's my studio audience. Thank you all so much for coming again. So we're back to you. Today we're gonna be talking about the books in 2020 that didn't quite hit the mark for me, okay? Didn't quite go there, but it's okay, you know, sometimes it happens, you know, everything can't be a 5-star, you know? If that's the case, then you're probably a bad reviewer, let's be 100. So there's two categories here, right? So there's gonna be two books that borderline angered me, right? So like there's that category, and then there's two books that I actually would still suggest to folks, but was a big disappointment to me personally. So those two books I'm gonna leave to the end because I feel like there's gonna be a little debate around there, even though this is my page, so I'll literally just delete your comment. But anyway, so yes, we're gonna start with the ones that angered me, and then we're gonna move into the ones that just disappointed me. And my hopes for this video is for us to just have a discussion about certain tropes that we find in fiction and how they can be a bit destructive in like races and races. So yes, we're gonna talk about all that. So the first book we're gonna talk about today that really had me messed up, like truly like side-eyeing for what, is Little Fires Everywhere by, I just realized I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I did plan to disrespect this book, but I didn't want to disrespect it like that. You feel me? Ooh. It's by Celeste. Please don't drag me for that, please. But it's Celeste NG. Nig? That can't be it.
In English, it is usually pronounced as eng. Eng. Did you get it? Does that work for you?
So I was hyped to read this book because of the Hulu series that came out under this name that was sporting my good girlfriend with the little face, Kerry Washington, and my other homegirl, Reese Witherspoon, right? So I was like, oh, boom, bet. You feel me? Like, I messed with them. I was like, okay, let me read this book. Cool, you know, loving the show. The show is amazing, and I would truly, truly, truly suggest that you go and only watch the show and do not read this book. Don't. Just don't read it. This book follows this woman by the name of Mia Warren and her daughter, who moves to this like sort of really ritzy suburban neighborhood in Cleveland, Ohio. Mia is an artist, and she has her like a single mother to her daughter, and they go and decide to rent out the home of this really wealthy family, right? But in the midst of renting out the home, they begin to build a relationship with the wealthier family, whose name I don't remember, and I'm not even gonna go look at it, right? Mia's daughter begins to like hang out with the wealthy family's children, and they kind of commingle in that way. Basically, it's a story of this wealthy woman, Elena. I did go to check because I'm fake. Elena becomes curious about Mia, and mostly she becomes curious because Mia is like sort of represents a divergent path of like life that Elena did not allow herself to take. And also Elena is interested in sort of being this pillar of like charity for Mia as well. Pretty much you begin to learn like, okay, what is up with Mia and why is Elena so pressed? Here's my problem with this book. It is boring. It's so boring. It's so boring. The show was unbelievable. And the reason why it was so great and so fantastic is because the tensions that were layered within the relationship between Mia and Elena actually made sense and actually was like rich. In the show, if you watched it, Mia is played by Kerry Washington, who is a black woman, and Elena is played by Reese Witherspoon, who is a white woman, right? But in the book, both of them are white. So what is gained in the show that is lost in the book is the racial dynamics that create a sort of tension and also layers to the conflict and the overall richness of the plot and what is made possible within these discussions around race and class, right? The only thing we have in the book that is happening is a conversation around class between a richer white woman and a lower class white woman, which to me is like, who cares? So granted, if this was just a story about like the socioeconomic divide within two white mothers trying to raise their children, if that was like the entirety of the book, I don't think that alone would make it like bad, right? I think it'll have to take some work to make it more interesting for me as a reader. And also, this is like my interpretation. I mean, this is also my page. It's possible to make that into something, but the real issue that came up here is that you begin to realize that the character of Mia was all just a foil for the more affluent family. Like, there was no resolve or anything as it related to Mia or her daughter's narrative. And it was all in service of this affluent white mother, which was like so jarring. Once you get to the end of this book, you realize that the entire discussion and the entire just existence of this character, Mia and her daughter, was all in service of what the author wanted us to learn or to know about affluent suburban white women, white mothers in particular. It was basically just like a self-help book for affluent cisgender white mothers. A cautionary tale of like what they need to do and what they should look out for and how they need to start valuing like the existences of people outside of their own realm more. Asking them to like see the humanity in not even like non-white mothers. The foil is another white mother. You get me? I do believe Celeste wrote this book for that demographic, which even if that is what her Celeste's goal was, it is still so disrespectful for Mia Warrens out there to be used as like a means to like teach, right? This is like a bestseller, you know, and I'm starting to realize more and more that this whole bestseller thing is for the birds. I'm gonna tell you this right now. This next book, this book is horrible, okay? Awesome. I was like, oh, this author wanna fight me. You could have just said that like, I can fight, you know, we can fight. Like, just tell me you wanna fight me, sis. You don't have to write a whole book. Just, I would like to fight you. Yeah. Just do that, sis. Just do that. Just do that. Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. Okay. So this book follows this white family that is trying to go on vacation. It's a mother, a father, and a daughter and a son, and they're going to Long Island to this Airbnb that they rented for, I believe it was like a weekend, right? So when they get there, they're like chilling, like, oh, living our lives, vacation, whatever. So later on that night, they get a knock on the door from this elderly black couple who actually turns out to be the owners of the Airbnb, and they're basically asking them if they'll be able to stay the night even though they know they rented it out to this couple, simply because there was a big like blackout in the rest of the city and no one really knows like what is going on. Also, another part of this story is that the Airbnb in Long Island in which they're staying already didn't have cell phone service when the family got there. And then it turns out that they don't have cell phone service, not just there, but the entire city has went black, and nobody really knows why. And this elderly couple was on their way like out somewhere, like they was gonna leave for the weekend. That's why they rented out their place. But turns out that they had to turn around and then we needed to go back home. The whole story just centers around their dynamics, like the family and this elderly black couple that owns the place, as well as trying to understand what this like kind of ominous like thing that is happening in the world that no one knows. What really turned me off about this book, that not just turned me off, to be honest, that like really enraged me, is the way that Rumaan wrote and handled the black elderly couple and like the black characters basically in this book. What I tend to find with like these sort of progressive non-black authors who attempt to write black characters is that they're like hyper aware of the overall like stereotypes that pervade within literature and the anti-black nature in which black characters are written in, tend to be written in fiction, right? So what these like sort of progressive non-black authors try to do is just go the complete opposite direction. But what they tend to do, that Rumaan did, is they go from the extreme of being like this super like dominant you know, figure that a lot of like black people are fictionalized as in the street and in fiction, into this super docile, agreeable, super accommodating figure that also strips them of the humanity in which they deserve, similar to the other ways that they're stripped of their humanity, right? This was the black elderly family's home, right? Period. Yes, they rented it out for the weekend for this white family and their vacation, absolutely. But at the end of the day, this was their home. There were so many times in which the white characters sort of inserted their ownership in the space that just felt not right. And I understand, like I've had Airbnbs before, right? If the owner comes in when I'm like staying at an Airbnb for a week and this is the only place I have to stay, of course I want to feel some type of way. But when there's this whole anomaly happening within the world, of course this black family is gonna come back home, right? So like, yes, you paid your money, yes, this is like a bummer, this wanna be your vacation, sure. But at the end of the day, we go down to reality that money can be given back, right? And all that can be recompensated, but this family, this black elderly family, needed to be back home while the world is literally doing a thing that no one knows what it's doing. Even when they came to the door, the white mother kept questioning whether or not they lived there, right? It got to a point where the black couple had did so many things to like show that this is where they live, like, but it was still being met with disbelief. And it got to the point where even the white mother started to like assume that, oh, this must be the cleaners here, that they must be the cleaners and that's why they know so much, right? Which is like, this was just supposed to be a story about like, okay, like these white people are racist and this is how they're like deciding to show their racism and this is like embedded as part of the story. Okay, I can kind of understand that. I can kind of like, not really get around it, but I can kind of like, you know, sure, that is what you're doing. In particular, the black husband would just be super docile and like very like agreeable and very like, oh, you know, like I understand. And it is something about that nature that really bothered me. And it made me feel uncomfortable to think like, why does this author believe that that is a useful response for this black elderly man? And also, haven't even started talking about the black wife and how all of her concerns and everything she had to say as far as like what was happening in the world, what she wanted for her home, how she wanted to engage with this white couple that was living in her home, how all of that undermined, ignored, thrown to the side by this black husband in service of this white family. Why are you allowing this couple to have such turmoil within each other for this white couple who are staying in their home? The white woman didn't even want them to be there in their own home. This book is so frustrating, and it's frustrating because this is a trend. Stop writing the black characters that you want all black people to be like. Stop writing a black character that you will feel the most comfortable being in close quarters with. Stop writing those black characters, because I'm not interested in them. I don't want to meet those black people that make you feel safe. I don't want to meet them. Okay, so these next two books I'm about to share with you are by no means bad at all, right? They're not bad books. Actually, I would say that they're very great books, and I actually really enjoyed them. But they are books that I was looking forward to like intensely, and they did quite miss the mark for me. So the first book within this category I like to share is Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendez. Yeah, so this is like a dual narrative. The larger, more extended part of the book follows Jesse, who I believe is 19, who has just recently moved to London after being excommunicated from his Jehovah's Witness family after being discovered as being queer. A lot of his story is him reconciling with his sexuality that has been pent up and rather repressed for so many years due to his religion, as well as us watching him like explore sex work and explore trying to live on his own without having much means. So I was super excited about this book because I don't know of many books that talk about sex work with a black male queer protagonist. If you know of books that do this work, please put it in the comment. What kind of turned me off about this book is just about all of Jesse's like sexual interest. And this was not just simply his clients, but also just the people he was interested in, like the men that he like started having crushes on that weren't clientele, were all white. What was happening that was really like, that like took me out is it was towards like the very end where he was talking to this other black boy that he got to know that was a friend of this white man that he was dating. And the black boy that he got to know was also dating a white man. They were discussing like, they kind of just started with like this conversation of like, oh, you know, I date white men and you date white men. Like, what does this mean about us, right? And then the discussion just kind of went into like how, yeah, I understand that what the implications are for me to date white men, and how only finding white men attractive does have larger implications on like my self-image, and there's like things I need to unpack about my desire for white men that is not just simply me liking this particular person, but me liking like this sort of power associated to this person, and also like the beauty standards that are attached to this person and all that. It was like, it kind of felt like Paul, the author, wrote this entire book as it is, and then like let someone else read it, or maybe even read it over themselves, and then was like, maybe I should have the black characters talk to each other about this so my reader knows that I am woke and aware. You know, it was so truncated, and also the conversation that they were having actually wasn't doing any work. It was literally just them posing hypothetical questions to one another that didn't bear any fruit, that didn't go anywhere. It was just them taking a moment to acknowledge this thing that they know they share and that they're experiencing. But that was really it. Like, okay, but what's next? Or what does that mean in relation to other Black people around you? And what does that mean when other Black people find you attractive? Like, it never goes any further than that. You have to start like naming and then fully interrogating. And by interrogating, it's not just asking more hypothetical questions. Interrogating in the sense of like, what are you gonna do? You know, like, how are you going to change this? In what ways does this affect your community? Ways is this even affecting how white people interact with you? What are the tangible ramifications of what you are saying, you are feeling, and you are acting upon, right? What I'm talking about is like, it's less about a conversation of damning interracial relationships, right? Because I'm not really interested in that, because I actually don't care. But what I don't want is to have to sit through and hear the rationale and hear also like the trauma that is informing some of the decisions a Black person may be making in this sort of circumstance, and then it just be left there, because that is a lot. For the work to become interesting and for the work to become revelatory and for the work to become like a place in which we can learn and grow, we have to start pushing further than just naming what may be the problem, right? Or just naming what may be some of the like societal pressures that are causing us to form our sexual attractions, right? Because everything is political, you know? Sex is political, attraction is political, cuteness is political, it all is. So yeah, we gotta go further. We gotta go further. So I feel like out of all the books I talked about, I think this one I might get the most heat for, but again, I can fight. So I still think the book is amazing. I think it is still super important. I think it deserves to be on like folks' lists, and I just think it deserves to like, you know, be up there. But I will say that I do think it just slightly didn't hit the mark. And the book I'm talking about is The Deep by River Solomon. I know. So basically, The Deep is a sort of mythology around what happened to children in the womb of pregnant slaves when they were thrown overboard from various slave ships during the transatlantic slave trade. The Deep argues is that all of those pregnant that was thrown overboard, their offspring was actually born underwater, and the rationale is they lived in the womb, which is filled with water. So when they were birthed, they was able to breathe underwater and become these mermaids that lived in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And generations after generations, they just grew offsprings and created like this whole community of Black mermaids descended of Black enslaved people. We follow a main character who is given the task of holding the memory of the community. So the way this works is, instead of having everyone in the community remember everything about like their ancestors and remember everything about their history, it's all given to one singular person to hold all 600 years of their collective memories. And the rationale around that is when Black folks in particular have these memories and have all this knowledge of like where they came from before and all this like the turmoil that they experience, it like dulls down and sort of like deteriorates the community. So instead of making everyone have to feel that and deal with that, they give it to this one special person who carries it, and then I think it was annually, they do this ceremony where this carrier of the memories gives it out to the rest of the community so they can experience it. And the rationale there is that you know, you have to have a little piece of it to just have like a jolt of that memory to know where you came from in order to like, you know, continue to do like your work and continue to propel in your life. But you don't want to hold it for too long. The character, after doling out the memories to the entire community, decides that she does not want it back. That is actually too much for her to handle, that she doesn't want to be the one to carry it anymore, so she decides to just flee, right? Well, I think it kind of like, I don't know, didn't quite make it for me, is that I feel like a lot of the book hinged on how amazing the concept was and sort of didn't really come through with us as it relates to like the actual story and like the exploration of these concepts, right? As a Black person who who's already having these conversations that River Solomon had in these books around like the usefulness and the utility rather of memories, and like these are conversations that Black people, I think most Black people have within themselves. Like, do I want to learn about this? Do I want to know this? Will it like burden me, or will it liberate me, right? So these are conversations that Black people have. So though I love the concept, the actual like the foundation of it is still familiar, but it was like given to us in a very like special and amazing and magical way that I loved. But since that the material is familiar, I needed the heart piece of it. I wanted to like really explore it, and I really wanted to like learn from this book in a way that I didn't. And I think part of the reason is because it is so short. It's like less than 200 pages. It's like a novella, and I think the story and the concept was done a disservice by being so short. I do think that a lot of these conversations have already been started for a lot of Black people, and what I wanted in this book was to be given more of a lesson, and like to be able to learn from the main character, to like really like be involved in them trying to figure it out a little bit more, that the page constraint did not give it the opportunity to do. It just felt very concept driven and not very invested in exploration and follow through of those concepts. It is what it is. All right, so we have reached the end of this video. Thank you all so much for sticking with me, and please like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye.